Hey there, YouTube. We're back. We're here to talk about lead some more. So I put out like a 4 minute quick video talking about lead levels, and the comments were interesting. Um, anyway, let's get into it. One guy says, I was curious to this being that shooting suppressed, even while outside, can be a bit gassy. Glad to hear it's not a common issue. Well, with the suppressors, here's a good example. Here's the RC2. Like this is like I have a pretty similar opinion to, well, not surprisingly, pretty similar opinion to Matt. He's like, well, you know what I know about my RC2? It's never let me down. And this one can in particular, I would say that I've been abusive towards. This one's been shot red hot. It's had, tens of thousands of rounds through it at this point. You can see I've, done the thing where I fired off the gun to defeat the carbon lock, that type of stuff, which is supposed to be the thing you do as a last resort, but it's like the thing that I like to start with because it's fun. That type of stuff. So anyway, this suppressor is pretty good. Like it does the job of suppressing the rifle, and that is cool, but you definitely are going to get gassed in the face. The way I experience it, like if I'm shooting like 15, 20 rounds rapid fire, the gun starts cold. And I'm just like, bah, 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 just get on it doing a drill. Like after about 20 rounds, my eyes start watering. It's like you can like the gas is coming back and hitting you in the face. Is that gas good for you? No, I really don't think so. But it's not like I do it that much. I have another opinion. Like I don't really like shooting suppressed, and that's part of the reason. It's just like another thing like that that you have to worry about is getting gas in the face, or you can use a flow through suppressor, which is better, but it still heats up and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I do not think shooting suppressed is like good for your health. Especially the old school stuff that's gassing you in the face. Like, I really don't think that. But how bad is it just in terms of lead? I'm not really sure, to be honest. I don't think it's huge. It's not good. Another comment here. Now, you might remember I don't know. I think I'm pretty reasonable with the lead stuff. Like, I don't want to have high lead levels, but at the same time, I'm not going to do like every possible thing I can to mitigate lead if I don't think that that stuff matters. So I'm not a freak about like having a separate laundry machine for clothes that I shoot in, that kind of stuff. I think that's honestly that's kind of crazy if there's like no kids in the mix, you're just an adult and you're doing that kind of stuff. Honestly, I find that weird, but you do you. One guy says, you're right, Ben. There's a dissertation by a German doctor online, or at least there was, unfortunately, in German. And what he says in a nutshell, outdoor range, no problem at all. Indoor range, huge problem. His solution is only shooting outdoors. Yeah, that's just been what I've experienced. Like being around this stuff for a couple of decades, like sometimes you'll hear about, hey, this dude's got an elevated lead level, or hey, this guy's got symptoms and had a problem or whatever. Like I said, apart from like military type of training, which has a lot more of ways you can get lead and a lot of other things that can happen, like just guys shooting. When I hear about somebody actually getting symptomatic and having a problem, it's associated with an indoor range in some way. Like, and I can't think of an exception, to be honest with you. I'm sure there's exceptions. I just can't think of one. One guy says, my lead levels are definitely too high. The ventilation at my range sucks, and I started wearing a respirator. All the serious shooters at my club wear masks and clean up with lead wipes. It's something that people should be more aware of. Yeah, so if I'm at an indoor range like that that's poorly ventilated, and let's say, I'm shooting, teaching in there for a day or two, which happens, it's the type of place where there's like black crap all over the mask that I'm wearing after a day. And the next day I use a different mask. It's like, let me put it this way: I'm happy I'm wearing the mask. I'm happy I'm wearing the mask. One guy says, I really think some folks are more susceptible to higher lead levels in their blood and bones than others, all else being equal. I happen to fall into that group. Also, every shooting match has several folks that wear shorts while shooting. I guess they don't believe that walking from stage to stage, shooting within a stage, pasting targets is going to kick up lead dust while they walk around in them and it lands on their legs. Most ranges locally here are dirt and gravel ranges, not grass covered. Um, yeah, I would just wear shorts personally. I would 100% wear shorts because I'm not worried about the lead that's coming off the ground onto my legs. One guy says a lot of context about lead exposure has to be taken to fully understand your risks. As a left-handed shooter, my face is on the wrong side of the ejection port. follow my competition rifles, my lead levels directly correlate to how much I shoot throughout the year. Yeah, that doesn't sound too good to me. That would suck if I'm just getting just getting it in the face like that. Sorry to hear that, man. I would, man, maybe shoot a different setup. One guy says, I shot 3 times a week at an indoor range without any precautions for a year. Got lead levels checked and I was way elevated. My shooting buddy was far worse. Now I shoot outside almost exclusively, but not sure what I will do when the winter comes. Yeah, again, like it's the indoor range ventilation thing is going to be the biggest thing. Definitely. One guy says, this is an interesting comment, a long one. I worked as a firearms instructor, range master for over 15 years in both outdoor and indoor ranges for a sheriff's department in California. We routinely handled ammunition, did quite a bit of shooting, and performed housekeeping chores on the ranges. That's where you want to watch out, man. As I had an extraordinarily high lead level when tested in 2004, and I tested even higher 4 months later, I ultimately had to stop working the indoor range for 8 months until my blood tests plateaued. Yeah, no shit. This was in the late fall and winter when we were using indoor range exclusively. Part of cleaning up the range involved cleaning up the impact area, which are very large upper and lower steel plates angled away from shooters down to a 5 to 6 inch opening at the rear where the bullets are trapped and drop into a large container. When bullets, even jacketed ones, hit either the plates, they deform and normally leave a smear of lead on the plate itself. Yeah, okay. So if I'm shooting at an indoor range like this, you probably get the best look at this stuff shooting frange because you shoot frange like enough, like maybe you use 10,000 rounds in a day with enough people, and you just putting the frange on the range, there's like this dust all over the floor near the backstop, like all over the place. And that's like the frange stuff's not even lead. Now I know the jacketed lead stuff's going to act different, but you can imagine there's like that dust, that crap everywhere back there. Like this is where I hear people get into trouble when they go back and start dicking around by the traps. When bullets, even jacketed ones, hit, okay, I burned that. But unburned powder, target scraps, and empty cartridge cases accumulate all over the place. At the end of each range session, you have to collect all the empties and tidy the place up. Yeah, so what you see now is like brass rollers where you can just roll through the indoor range and like roll up all the brass and get it, or like you squeegee it off the range instead of using a broom. You see a lot of stuff like that, which is I think is good. He says, I started wearing surgical gloves and an N95 mask. When I got home, I'd immediately dump my clothes in the washer so my wife didn't have to handle them. So if you work at a range, get tested. Yeah, this would be, if I worked at an indoor range, this would be a very, very big concern. Very big concern. One guy says, for reloaders, making the switch over to wet tumbling helps a lot. Yes, I use wet tumbling. I like it. He says, I used to mask up all the time when I shot indoors 2 to 3 times a week, return my lead levels back to normal. Yes, that's smart. One guy says, what about shooting suppressed aerosolized lead? Yeah, I just addressed that. This is why guys like the flow through. Honestly, that's what it does, is you're not getting gassed in the face. Um, One guy says no lead is acceptable in your blood, so zero is normal. Anything elevated can cause insidious health effects, and you don't want chelation. Like I think this is low IQ thinking, honestly. Um, there's going to be lead exposure out in the world, and people have lead in some level. Now I don't want more lead in me, but like if I have relatively low lead levels, I'm not going to freak out. That's not going to wig me out too much because like that helps me make good decisions where I can see like, oh, indoor range is bad. Like be careful with indoor ranges. Whereas I see very, very marginal when people get to the point where like they're shooting outdoors with like clean factory ammunition, their hands appear to be clean and they de-lead wipe. Now, I'm not saying don't do that, but what level, like how much effect is that having on your lead level? I'm not sure it'd be measurable over time. Maybe, depending on what you're doing. So it's like I think you want to make like good risk mitigation decisions rather than just say, oh, it's zero. It's got to be zero. I think that's stupid. Anyway, I had elevated blood lead levels. He says 47% above Australian civilian limit. Okay, that's another thing. I would. I mean, you have to check what that limit is. Like a lot of it's pretty easy for like depending on where you are or like depending on who's making these determinations, they could be somebody with a like the Australian civilian limit might be more towards the zero end of it rather than based on some kind of like where symptoms start or what kind of problems you're going to have. I don't know. Anyway, I would research that number specifically, but it's not here. Due mostly to frequent shooting at indoor range, has improved since I moved to an outdoor club. Yeah, good. Also, for the love of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, never ever sweep out brass with the bristle broom. You'll create plumes of airborne lead dust that will go straight to your bloodstream, not to mention your lungs. Yes, get the rubber bladed brooms. Yes, yes, the squeegees things are common. Is what this guy's talking about. Now, a lot of this stuff is just really common sense where it's, I mean, you can tell at an indoor range when someone does this. Like if they take a broom and they like shake it off, it'll make this big cloud of stuff. You don't need to be that smart to look at that and be like, I don't think I want to breathe that in. That just doesn't seem like a good idea. Like exercising common sense is going to help you a lot with the lead stuff. Even the guys that shoot indoors, like if they're honest with themselves, they probably taste it at the end of a range session. Like they're breathing in crap. They probably don't like the air quality at the indoor range. And then they just keep going. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, your body's telling you that's not good for you. Like you can tell. Um, One guy says, I stopped shooting a few years ago, but found my lead levels are going up. Do you think my wife is poisoning me? Maybe, maybe. I wouldn't, maybe you wouldn't blame her. I don't know. One guy says, my lead levels have been going up considerably since I've been teaching indoors more this past winter. I became symptomatic to the point that I was having extreme headaches, brain fog, etc. Ooh. Yes, that's not good. This is not where you want to be. One guy says, continues, the last test went up over 8 more points. The crew I was shooting with had a habit of wanting to sweep brass back to the side of the range constantly because they didn't want to step on it during the course of fire. Never do that. Sweep from front to back towards the exhaust. Now I need an infusion, and the supplements aren't helping to bring the lead levels down. Yes, if you do a lot of shooting inside, despite even having a good filtration system, I encourage everyone to get tested at least twice a year, maybe even quarterly. Yeah, it's not a bad thing to get tested, and then you'll just kind of know. All right, let's take one more comment. Ben, I think you and I talked about this, but back in 2021, my level was 26. What I forget the unit. He put the abbreviation. I'm not going to try to read it. I was not taking any precautions. I was picking up and sorting through tons of range brass inside my garage. I dry tumbled next to my reloading bench, also inside the garage. I would snack while I reloaded ammo. Just dumb shit. Yeah, I mean having the tumbler next to the press, it's like you can't escape like the plume of crap when you open the tumbler. I started doing things smarter than that. I wear a respirator anytime I handle dirty brass at home. I wash my hands constantly. I switch to wet tumbling. I don't ever eat and I avoid touching my face when shooting or reloading. In 2022, my levels went down to 16, and just recently they're down to 9. I think the last time I was tested, I was like 7. As you said, shooting alone doesn't raise levels. The amount of live fire I do has remained constant. It's doing other stupid shit that can expose us to lead that is the problem. So, like, yeah, I think that's true. I would agree with that. All right. Well, there it is. The lead thing is interesting. It's an interesting thing to talk about. It's not something you like. You don't want to be one of these people that just starts doing something and then like 8 months later you realize you have a problem with lead. Obviously, that's not good.